On this episode of IT Unplugged, we're going to look at road mapping and if your company should be doing it. Spoiler alert, they should.
At M2 Technology, we're on a mission to make IT accessible to everyone. Join us on our journey to demystify the ever-evolving world of business technology. Are you ready to get unplugged?
Welcome back to IT Unplugged. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Joe.
And today we're going to talk a little bit about IT road mapping. Maybe for people that don't know what IT road mapping is, can you just give us a definition?
Sure. Yeah. So IT road mapping is kind of setting the plan for, X amount of time. So sometimes you road map for 3 years, 18 months, whatever it is you pick. And you kind of have to do all different levels. But yeah, it's sort of setting your plan and agenda.
Nice. Okay. So why is it crucial for businesses to have an IT roadmap? IT supports business. I mean, that's the first thing that we have to set is, and so the IT road mapping will support the business initiatives. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So you really need to know what your business initiatives are before you do IT road mapping. That's kind of what it comes down to, and it should be aligned.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Sounds so. With that being said, where do you start? I'm sure there's some CEOs out there or presidents of growing companies, and they're like, yeah, we've never even really looked at this. We just need a new laptop and we get one or something like that. Like, where do you start with IT road mapping?
Yeah. So you start by the business and organizational roadmap.
Sure.
That has to be laid out because there's going to be business initiatives for, people are really good at planning that.
Yeah.
And so once you do that now, and during that process, you have IT involved. Mm-hmm. So they're involved right from the get-go. So that they're part of that and understanding it. And then you build an IT roadmap that supports the business initiatives. And so you can think of several different things that you have to. So now, maybe in 18 months, they want to, double in size. Okay, well, what does that mean for our IT infrastructure? And so then you have to kind of work it back and plan for that. Then the other part of that is, okay, so that's now what we have to build to support the organization. Mm-hmm. Now what do we need to do just from an IT perspective, the hardware refreshes, those type of things. So it's a little bit of a, I guess musical chairs thing sometimes, but it's definitely an important component.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting because I think of some companies that we've worked with or that we've run discovery with, and they're large companies and they're growing companies, mm-hmm. and they don't really have a whole lot of IT presence. Maybe they have somebody that fixes some things, but it just hasn't been a huge priority. So how do you convince a non-IT executive or even a non-techie executive that they should be going through this process?
No, it's a good question, and I think some of it is sometimes it flips. They don't do the business road mapping first, and then they just want the IT roadmap,
sure.
Which is that doesn't work. You
mm-hmm.
know what I mean? So if they're willing to do the organizational roadmap, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
You can sort of build the IT roadmap based off of that as long as it's communicated. Now, I think the part where you're talking about is what if that sort of collaboration isn't there.
Sure.
So that's just over time and, building that relationship and trust and getting them to understand how much more effective we can be. And a lot of it is going to end up in the financial part. That's what's going to do the convincing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it sounds like it's a lot more proactive than reactive when it comes to this.
Yeah.
Is that
that's the whole idea of it is the road mapping helps you transition from IT being reactive
mm-hmm.
to IT being proactive and, helping push business along. And in a lot of ways, you can leverage IT to be a business that can be a business differentiator for
sure.
you, a huge advantage in the marketplace.
Yeah, I could see that. When you're trying to grow and grow fast, I could see how having the plan in place versus being reactive, could kind of rocket fuel you forward.
Yep.
What do you think is, so here's where my brain goes. I'm a non-technical
Yep.
president, founder, something like that, and you're running through this and you're saying, all right, yep, you're plan on 5x growth in the next blank years. Here's what you're going to need with your network. Here's how many more, if you're going to bring on these many employees, here's how many more devices. Like, I think that dollar signs start going off in that person's head, and they're like, whoa, is this really necessary?
Sure.
Is it kind of a shock in what it might take from an IT standpoint to like effectively grow your business? Because it's really easy for a CEO to be like, we're going to 5x. It's not easy, but you know what I mean? Like, you can throw out that number, but then to see what it takes to actually get there from an IT standpoint. Do you get a lot of pushback on that?
Well, okay. So that's it's such an open-ended question. Okay.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do.
So so you always get pushback on spending money.
Yeah.
Right. And so then it's well, okay. So what is the value I'm getting for this? Mm-hmm. Part of that is the bigger part of it is as an IT leader, understanding the business and then where you can be effective applying the technology to their process or their initiatives. And so then that sticker shock isn't so great because it's like, oh, I understand when I'm spending this money, this is the value I'm getting for this, and this is important. Yeah. So if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It does. I think it's just like you said before, that trust and stuff like that. So how many, IT companies do you think actually do road mapping for their customers? When you think of MSPs and you think of N2 technology, I know that we've gotten asked, hey, can you guys do this? And it's great that we have you on board, and we've also done a little bit in the past. But these other maybe smaller shops, is this a normal thing for MSPs to do?
I think it's certainly an industry that is it's out there. There are companies that do it. I'm not sure that it's there are companies that aren't being approached or offered or shown the value of like what that can help them with. Yeah. Because in a lot of ways it's like, well, it might be too small, or we're not interested in it, or whatever, for whatever reason. I think every organization should have the opportunity to roadmap and understand what IT can do for them. Yeah. So I think the onus a little bit is on us to understand the business, and then to bring in something that can really have high impact that maybe isn't a huge cost to them. Yeah, no, I like that. And I guess I'm not like, I think I've seen so far a lot of the times that it's either one or the other. Like, we fix things and we install things and we'll buy them for you. Or it's, hey, we're the planners, we're the people that will lay this out for you, but you got to find someone else to install this. You know what I mean? Like, and then have someone else buy it. But like, we'll be the consultants, or we'll be the hands-on people. I think one of the things that I, truly appreciate is the fact that we can do all of that at once. Not trying to, sell M2 or anything like that. Just the fact that you don't need to have two different parties looking at that. It's like, hey, we have an all-in-one solution there. So, but with that being said, like, what are some of the major roadblocks when it comes to IT mapping? Well, I'm gonna go back to your last comment, because I think it's important. Like, there's a lot of this that we can do. And then there's also that we have strategic partners that fill in the gaps of what we can. We talked about this before about what are your strengths. And if we'll have some core competencies that we're really good at. We'll have some things that we don't do well, and we're going to get someone that does it well, because that's what the customer, really needs. So where we need to leverage someone, we will, for sure. And I just think that's important to, to approach it that way, because it's all about the end result for the customer. Oh yeah. So that's the making the difference part that I get excited about. No, and it all comes back to what's best for the customer, right? Yeah. It's like, we could do that, but we're not the best at it. You know what I mean? So let's make sure the customer's taken care of in that aspect. Just kind of going from that discovery process, I might be getting off a little bit. That is one of my favorite things, is to figure out what business outcomes and goals are. And I feel like I get a lot of weird, I don't want to say kickback, but like that shock a little bit when we sit down. I have nightmares of this. Okay. We walk in the front door and they go, let me show you the IT closet. And I'm like, no, I don't want to see the IT closet. Like, of course I do later, but like, can we sit down and figure out where you want to be next year and where you want to be in 3 years? And what's the things that are prohibiting you from a technology standpoint from growing? That's where we want to get in to fully understand the company, so then we can help you achieve those goals, rather than, hey, is my router old? Yeah.
that's so surface level, and it's something that you can look at and fix in a matter of, seconds,
Yeah.
versus how do we really become a partner?
Right. Yeah. And all that stuff's important, right? I mean, that closet's really important, and
It is.
I'd be very excited to see that.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Every IT consultant that's on our team that's with is like, they're gonna show us the closet. That's great, and I'm like, no, I don't want to see the closet. Every time we go in the closet, it gets so technical that we move away from the big picture things that we can help with. So I think there's the macro and the micro level, obviously, and everything is important. It's just one of those things. Like, I really want to understand what's inside of your business,
right?
And what is actually keeping you up at night, because you might have the cybersecurity concerns that are keeping you up at night that goes, am I protected enough? But there's like a deeper why behind that. It's not just a piece of hardware, right? It's what else is driving that concern? What else is driving that? So, but yeah, that's kind of, I guess that's the difference also with both those avenues, right? Like, we can fix things and we can help you and become a partner.
Yeah.
So.
And I think, to your comment, right, it's people need to see that their IT department isn't just the guys who run the cables or the guys, right?
Yeah.
That it is more, that is it can be part of the business and helping you, achieve your business goals by applying technology.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to that,
sure.
What are the roadblocks that then you see most often when it comes to IT road mapping?
Well, back to your original comment, it's financial I guess you use the term roadblock, so I'll just honor that word. I don't know that I would ever say a roadblock, but
what would you
that's
say? What can I add to my vocabulary?
Challenges, concerns. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to tell you what
you're getting.
Well, there's a challenge, and then I'll tell you the opportunity. But that's how you always have to look at it, right? Everything's an opportunity. I mean, I think there's always opportunity in whatever situation, but so anyway, financial is that, that's kind of the obvious one, but is something that's maybe not so obvious, or until you start to get into it, is sort of that the change management piece of it. And I think that gets the training department is always they're always forgotten about when you go through these things. And so the sooner you can bring that training or that change management in early, if let's say you establish your roadmap and part of that is, new version of Outlook, right? That's a simple one. But Outlook looks very different than it did in its last release, right? For some people, that's a challenge. And that's real. That is a real, I mean, being techie, it's like we're sort of used to the newer things and yada yada, but that does happen sometimes where you're like, Windows 11, I can't stand it. Can I just go back to Windows 10?
Yes.
Right. And so anyway, helping with that change management, that training, that's the biggest, I think, sort of thing that gets forgotten in the whole road mapping is how to.
There's so many things that you just said that I think are really important. First off, the end user. I mean, I think the other day, I'm not an IT consultant, so I can say this, but we had a Outlook issue, and I use the desktop version, the new version, and someone was asking, and I looked, and they're on the old, web-based or something like that. I'm like, I have no idea what this is. I'm sorry. Let me Google and try to figure that out. But somebody lives in their email and they use it every single day. Like, that's not a small thing for them. And not everybody has the savvy to go in and just be like, oh yeah, I'll just update this or Google it and figure it out. So yeah, looking at that end user. And I think I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but I think it's so important that the end users find value in the IT help that's being brought forward as well. We had somebody that recently was saying, hey, I think we should do this part of the project later on in a build. And we're like, we only get one opportunity coming on to have those end users really feel the value of the IT. And then every change that happens after that, if it's like you're building trust, like with anything else, right? So if the first time that you make a change and everybody is like, oh, we don't know how to use this, this is horrible. The next time you roll out another change, it's like the eye roll.
Here they come again.
Oh, here they come again. Like, it's important. And even if that end user isn't paying your bills, like they're your customer as well, even if you're reporting to someone higher up. I think of going off on that little tangent a little bit, but how do you then, when it comes to that change management, what are some of the most effective ways that you've trained those end users or gotten people involved? Like, is it I'm going to stay at the office now and run a training for 4 hours, or is it leading them to resources? Like what's most effective usually?
Multiple methods, and every end user is different, right? And so some people just, hey, send me the YouTube video, and half hour later I'll be fine. Some people are hands-on. Let's get them in a conference room and go through it. And so it really is just every organization is going to have a different, and that's I guess why you kind of have to lean on your change management or your training group in some ways. But
okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, definitely for different personalities that are out there, right? Yeah. So can you tell me, like, share a success story with IT road mapping and when you've seen it really make a huge difference?
Yeah, I think it always makes a huge difference. I got stuck as I was thinking about it, but I think the I guess the most recent example, or a recent example, was when we did a multi-million-dollar hardware refresh. And so if you can think of how much money was spent in that situation, business is going to be impacted because we're going to have to replace an entire network at multiple sites throughout the country, plus the home server room and this whole thing. And so the road mapping for that was, and I guess I'm kind of mixing road mapping with the project planning, but the road mapping happened early, and that's when you had to allocate funds and how much it did cost it, right, and all that stuff. But we had to adjust that because see, this is the thing, you kind of have the best laid plans, right?
Sure. And
so we had the IT road mapping, and then part of that whole IT road mapping thing is you have to be able to adapt and be agile because business changes. And so as we were doing the implementation, well, okay, here's what we have scheduled out, and this is what's planned out. Then we got a different customer. Okay, pivot, we got to go over here.
Sure.
Another customer came in here, so we couldn't, and so there was a bunch of moving parts, and definitely would not have been as successful. First of all, I'm not sure we would have gotten the okay to do it had we not been very intentional and planful up front, and really aligned it with the business and what they were planning to do, because we had to really set ourselves up for that. Yeah,
absolutely. No, that's
I'm
awesome.
leaving out a ton of detail there, but it's like, that was a huge undertaking, but that was part of the IT roadmap for 3 years out. 6 months.
It's probably a lot easier to swallow when you have it 3 years out and it's going to happen, and then you have all these other things, and there's a security. Knowing like, we've looked at this, we've planned it. It's not a knee-jerk reaction. So what's the future look like for IT road mapping?
Well, it's funny because I think if you even looked, I'll say 15, but it might be 10, I don't know. But IT road mapping has changed a lot in the last 10, 15 years. In a lot of ways because business has understood the value of IT and what they can bring if you put them in the room early. And so there's a lot of companies now that they'll implement their software and they'll be like, IT light, no IT and all that stuff. And the next thing you know, IT's doing, right? Because there's integrations and there's support. I mean, there's so many things that, if you hear the IT light thing, it's not. It generally, you have to include IT in that initial thing. But what I think from a road mapping perspective, I think people have, realized that value of getting IT in early and helping them align IT with business. And that's been so much more productive, through that whole thing. I think now moving forward, anyway, so I think in some ways I'm living in the future, of road road mapping. It feels so good because it's like, that's what we said 15 years ago was in the future, we will be involved and we'll be in the conference room. And now we are, so I guess you're asking me now what's next. And I think that's AI and data driven and real time analytics that'll help us pivot that roadmap sooner. It not, AI is not going to do everything for you, but it can do some predictive analytics about, hey, your goal was this. From a business perspective, your goal was that, you're not going to reach that, or you're going to double that. And therefore we can adjust our IT roadmap to satisfy that business requirement. So I think there's a huge opportunity there from a data perspective.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I have 100 follow-up questions on that one.
Okay.
But we're running out of time. Specifically around AI, and if that's an IT or something that IT is going to be able to handle in the future as like part of their skill set, or if that's going to be additional AI engineers that are coming in different roles, and how that kind of looks. But like I said, I'm just teasing for that next episode whenever we get into it. So
all I know is there are a lot of people that are afraid of it, and it's no different than any other emerging technology.
Yeah.
Embrace it, find out how it can help you. Find out its limitations, right? And it's not going to take every programmer's job.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
There's been 1,000 things that have been supposedly to replace whatever it is, and it's not a scary thing. Embrace it, and it's going to be a really great technology for business.
Yeah, I'm excited. Just seeing the capabilities. It is moving so fast, and every day seems to change. So, but really appreciate your insight on IT road mapping. If you're a company that's looking for IT road mapping or just some insight in what that plan might look like, whether it's 6 months or 5 years, reach out to M2 Technology. We'd be happy to help. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.